6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. People of the world, hello and welcome to episode 86 of Marketing as a Foreign Language. The greatest show that I host on the internet. Is Facebook bad for society? New insights on the company's approach raise important questions coming on the heels of the social dilemma, which everyone was talking about there for a minute. Netflix documentary. Facebook's latest headache, its own employees' posts. Ooh. Baby mama llama drama. 4 reasons why focusing on community is your best marketing strategy. Oh, got to get that community love. How to target a specific audience through social media. Oh, let me count the ways. Google CEO Sundar Pichai calls for a hybrid work from home model. How about just a work from home model? And a quarter of U.S. adults now get their news from YouTube, according to a Pew Research study. Did you know that the show begins right now? Oh yeah, we're a live show in case you're wondering. 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every single day, Monday through Friday. If you want to join us, just swing by the YouTube channel, punch in the words marketing as foreign language. Voila, there we are. Subscribe, join us, comment. We'd love to hear from you. Is Facebook bad for society? New insights on the company's approach raise important questions. All links to all articles are found in the description. Andrew Hutchinson is the author of this here article. Is Facebook a positive or negative influence on society, and does the company, or indeed anybody in a position to enact any type of change, actually care? I do. This question has been posed by many research reports and academic analyses perhaps, over the years, but seemingly the broader populace, at least in Western nations, really hadn't given it a lot of consideration until the 2016 U.S. presidential election, where we all collectively, you can insert the vulgar phrase there, when it was revealed in the aftermath that foreign operatives, political activists, and other groups had been using Facebook ads and groups to influence U.S. voter activity. We get it. The launch of Facebook's newsfeed in September 2006 was a landmark moment for social media, providing a new way for people to engage with social platforms and eventually with the platforms themselves to better facilitate user engagement by highlighting the posts of most interest to users. So before we go on, I want to defend Facebook by saying it's become a ubiquitous social platform that allowed me to reconnect with my long-lost sister. If it wasn't for Facebook, I don't think we would have connected with her. So that, obviously, anecdotal as it may be, is one of many, many, many stories of a world that without Facebook simply would not exist. At that time, Facebook was only just starting to gain momentum with 12 million total users, though that was already more than double its total audience count from the previous year. Facebook was also slowly consuming the audience of previous social media leader MySpace. Remember MySpace? By 2007, with 20 million users, it introduced the like button in 2007. So this week, in a statement to a House Commerce Subcommittee hearing on how social media platforms contribute to the mainstreaming of extremist and radicalized content, former Facebook Director of Monetization Tim Kendall has criticized the tactics that the company used within its growth process and continues to employ today, which essentially put massive emphasis on maximizing user engagement and largely ignore the potential consequences of that approach. Mr. Kendall, or perhaps Mrs. Kendall, writes, quote, "The social media services that I and others have built over the past 15 years have served to tear people apart with alarming speed and intensity. At the very least, we have eroded our collective understanding. At worst, I fear we are pushing ourselves to the brink of a civil war." Now, before I say that I believe it's incredibly unlikely that we will enter into a civil war, I suppose that is somewhat naive of me to say that, it's not going to happen, there's no way, which is obviously ridiculous because there are such things as civil wars, and countries do get divided, and I think I would be accurate in saying that there are a few countries on the planet right now that would be positively tickled pink to see the United States in a civil war. We are not, by any stretch of the imagination, free from sin geopolitically, and we've got a few enemies out there. So I do feel, however, that we are not on the brink of that, and I do not feel that Facebook has that much power. I don't think that the Thanksgiving dinner fights are too, on a whole, different than what they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. I still feel like 50, 100, 200 years ago, there were conservative bubbles and liberal bubbles. So I really don't think that we are on the brink of a civil war, as Kendall has put, which seems alarmist, right? According to the article, how could a couple of likes on Facebook lead to the brink of a civil war? But that reality could actually be closer than many expect. For example, this week, U.S. President Donald Trump has once again reiterated that he cannot guarantee a peaceful transfer of power in the end of him losing the November election. I find this back and forth with President Trump and the I will leave, I won't leave. Well, rather, he never says that he will. To be, some folks are saying, like the Bill Maher's of the world, that it's a done deal. He's not leaving. He's just not going to go. And other people say that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Where will we be in a couple of months? I am watching with bated breath. So what is Facebook's role in all of this? Because Facebook prioritizes engagement over all else, and posts that generate a lot of comments and discussion get more traction and thereby get more distribution via Facebook's algorithm. Facebook also offers complex ad targeting options, which have enabled the Trump campaign to hone in on specific pain points. So in a recent show, we looked at the data of the Biden campaign versus the Trump campaign, and it isn't that the Trump campaign is spending wildly more than the Biden campaign. It is that the Biden campaign doesn't have as much segmentation, which is to say that the Trump campaign is spending more money on the administration of the ads, which is to say that in a specific zip code in Missouri, Trump will be spending different kind of ad dollars. And I would assume that his years in business have given him this kind of marketing behemoth. The more years of business that you have under your belt, the more you're going to have developed a team of marketers, and you'll know very good marketing professionals. And so it doesn't surprise me that the Trump campaign is all in on the marketing, not necessarily with total dollars spent, but with how granular those particular ads go. By using custom audiences, the Trump campaign is able to press on the key issues of concern to each specific audience subset more effectively than it can on other platforms. This is true, which then exacerbates specific fears and prompts support of the Trump agenda. Now, I'm not saying that either conservatives nor liberals aren't both using the same tactics. If you want to see this as a game, you've got two teams on the field that both very much know what they're doing. So in regards to civil unrest, I think we're going to jump past that. Real world consequences. So this is where things get even more complex, and Facebook's influence requires further scrutiny, as per the New York Times. A poll in May by the Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs Research found that only about half of Americans said they would be willing to get a coronavirus vaccine. 1 in 5 said they would refuse, and 31% were uncertain. Dr. Fauci has also highlighted the same concern, noting that general anti-science, anti-authority, and anti-vaccine feeling is likely to thwart vaccination efforts in the nation, likely to thwart. So the anti-vax movement can't purely be linked back to Facebook, but again, the evidence suggests that the platform has played a key role in amplifying such in favor of engagement. So this is the question on the table. Now, there are actually lawyers out there that deal with vaccine injury. I didn't even know such a thing existed. I did not know that there were lawyers where this is the case. It is very rare, but it does happen. And I think that's where a lot of folks struggle with this particular issue. The extreme rarity of injury versus the obvious benefit of herd immunity. And then, of course, the ridiculous lengths that the companies go through to ensure that these vaccines are safe. Recently, Zuckerberg, in an interview on Axios, mentioned some of these, you could call them counterpoints in an interview on Axios. So what is the point? The point is that Facebook, I don't think Zuckerberg really saw this coming. I think back in 2016, he got blindsided. I think the fairy tale ended. I often defend Facebook on this channel simply because I tend to see things from the business owner perspective, which I realize is kind of a minority view. And I understand and appreciate how difficult it is to have a perfect organization all of the time. But that's not what the hashtag Stop Hate for Profit folks are saying. They're saying it's not even close. It's not even in the ballpark. And as I mentioned before, the anecdotal items that you can bring up on Facebook are indefensible. You could show me a number of posts and say, see, Kellen, look what your dear Facebook has done. And I would not be able to defend them because the posts are garbage. What we're talking about is the aggregate number of posts that Facebook deletes, which is in an incredible quantity. And so at the end of the day, what do we want Facebook to look like in the next 5 to 10 years? What is their role in affecting our relationship with politics? And I do think that at a certain point, we do need to take some responsibility in regards to how we vote and understand that Facebook is imperfect and will continue to be imperfect. And simultaneously, and this may seem hypocritical, I do support the folks that are rallying against Facebook and trying to make it a better mechanism from the outside. I think both can be true at the same time. How can that possibly be, you might ask? Well, because you have a company that is employing a ton of people, that is creating, by and large, a social good. Facebook is just ubiquitous in our society at this point. But that does not mean, by any stretch of the imagination, that it is perfect. So to that point, we do have an article on Axios.com, Facebook's latest headache, its own employees' posts. If you work at Facebook, I think 10 years ago, there really wasn't too much to be cranky about. Nowadays, I think there's a lot of employees of Facebook that no longer feel like they're in this magical rainbow unicorn of a company, and that a lot of the people who hear that they work at Facebook simultaneously say, you must be really smart and well paid and good for you, but also, ooh. So I think that PR nightmare that has come as a result of a few missteps is resulting in articles like this one from Scott Rosenberg, again, Axios, link in the description. Facebook's rules for what people can say on the world's largest social network have been a long-term headache for the company, but now it faces similar troubles on the internal network its own staff uses. As political arguments on Facebook's employee discussion boards have grown more heated and divisive, the company ordered new restrictions on the forums earlier this month, which run on Facebook's workplace platforms. New restrictions on the forums. Last week, the company banned employees from replacing their profile photos on the system with activist images. So I've often talked about Facebook as a policing entity, policing the internet, or at least its portion of it. And they are now banning employees from changing their profile photos on the internal system, I believe, Facebook's workplace platform with activist image. Why does this matter? Facebook's difficulty managing its own employees using its own social network suggests that the company's problems might be rooted more in the conception and design of its products than in the fiery state of today's general public discourse. Facebook, like most Silicon Valley companies, has long prided itself on an open culture, embracing free debate, epitomized by regular staff meetings where CEO Mark Zuckerberg answered employee questions. So as a culture embracing free debate, I think this is the logical end result of growth over time. So when you're small, no one cares what you say. Many of the things that would be considered problematic only are problematic at scale, which is to say, now that you're a multi-billion-dollar company, all of the problems that used to be microscopic are no longer so. So the same culture extends to the version of Facebook Workplace that Facebook employees use as their company bulletin board and social network, but Trump-era divisions have stretched the company's culture to the breaking point, according to numerous reports, leaked posts, and tapes of company meetings. That's the other thing, too, is because we all have very quick and easy access to record things. The number of gaffes and problematic meetings and moments within companies are now easily recorded. Parallel to this is the number of teachers that are clearly being shown to be ineffective, let's say, because parents are at home watching the teachers. There are eyeballs on moments in our culture that simply were not seen before and are now being recorded. We are Big Brother alongside the government. President Trump's post following Black Lives Matter protests declaring, quote, "When the looting starts, the shooting starts," was particularly divisive. Zuckerberg's decision to give it a pass led some Facebook employees to conclude that the company was not living up to its ideals or fairly enforcing its rules. Leah Morrison, good morning. Hi. Thank you for the comment. Also, Esther Sass, does it matter when you can just call it fake news, according to Esther? Let's talk about fake news for just a second. So here we've got Zuckerberg basically making a call on when the looting starts, the shooting starts. It just goes to show that the line is very subjective many times. I'm not saying that there aren't a number of moments, like I mentioned earlier, where you can show me a post and I will agree with you wholeheartedly, and 99 out of 100 sane, rational human beings would agree with you. But then you get into this gray area, and ultimately Zuckerberg's making a decision to side on, the side of free speech, which in its essence, I think, is something worthy of praise. But just like anything, just like a referee in any game, when is it a penalty kick? Let's say it's the World Cup and some guy does something that is pretty much worthy of that penalty kick, and it's going to swing the whole game and change the course of this, gigantic international event. Those are hard calls to make. So at the risk of empathizing too much with Zuckerberg, he's not perfect. And oftentimes folks in high status positions will give other folks in high status positions a pass when they wouldn't do the same thing for someone who's not in that position. I saw a clip of LeBron James walking to half court, dribbles the ball twice, just holds it, and then starts dribbling it again. And his defender looked at the ref, looked at LeBron, looked at the ref, and went, "What the?" Because he clearly violated. It was a foul, and no one called it. Why? Because it's LeBron James. That's why. So Facebook is going to continue to have issues, clearly, with their employees. That's not going away. I think the only thing that stops this sort of thing from happening is getting smaller. I think at a certain size, companies like this are simply going to be eating this sort of sandwich, let's say. Entrepreneur.com, 4 reasons why focusing on community is your best marketing strategy. Before we dive into that, one more comment from Esther Sass. It seems to me, she writes, that Zuckerberg is picking and choosing his free speech issues, and I would agree with that. I think as the head of a company, we all would be picking and choosing our own free speech issues, and I think it's incredibly hard to have some sort of objective line when there just isn't one in reality. So I agree. I think he is picking and choosing. So what are these 4 reasons why focusing on community is your best marketing strategy? Oh, real quick before we dive in, we're getting some comments today. If y'all are interested in joining the live show, that's what it's all about. More comments, more love. Digital communities. This is the article. This is from Jared Polites, perhaps, with Entrepreneur.com. Polites. Digital communities are quickly becoming the lifeblood of organizations as more companies turn digital and remote. A recent article by the Wall Street Journal found that adults in the U.S. are now spending up to 16 hours a day on digital media. With so many options, the one commonality that many people are looking for is genuine connections with people and brands that share their interests and values. Okay, so just off that alone, I can say that for the Fortune 2000 companies, This is something that they've invested in. This is something that they are pushing forward every single day. They have staff, they hire agencies to deal with this. The reality for most small businesses is that this simply is too difficult to get off the ground. For example, if you are, let's say, a plumber and you are trying to create a community on your Facebook page, best of luck to you, sir. What are you going to do? You would have to find something that is so completely off topic that it barely resembles your initial offering. So let's say you went all in on like Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure, breast cancer, and you tried to make your plumbing page all about that thing that people actually somewhat care about. You might be able to pull that off. That would be called cause marketing, and hats off to you. Excellent job. For most people, say a probate estate attorney, trying to create a community where people are constantly asking them questions on the Facebook page would be, first of all, very difficult to get the likes necessary. So say you paid per like, and just throw a number out there, say it's $2 per like. So you spend $20,000 to get, you do the math, is that 10,000 likes? And you start asking them questions. Who really cares about estate planning and probate enough to generate a solid conversation? It's tough. So what I'm saying is, when I read articles like this, I very often think that there are people stuck in this bubble of corporate, and they go, oh, well, the 4 reasons why focusing on community is your best, really best marketing strategy. How about take that $20,000 and run a Google Ads campaign and get a ton of business to grow your practice as an estate planning attorney? So it's a little ridiculous on its face, but my assumption before we dive into this is that we're talking about larger companies. So the concept of a community is not always tangible. Communities can come in the shape of forums, social media pages, private groups, and in some cases a mix of each. We're back to the article, obviously. For brands that really get community right, this phenomenon could be fragmented and simply come down to offering a service that people genuinely love to associate with. The best communities are built organically over time and can act as a powerful and genuine marketing channel. For Binance co-founder, CMO Yi He, community has always been an important part of her career journey, as well as the driving force behind building out one of the most popular digital asset exchanges in the world. In just 3 years, Binance's business model, which includes executives interacting daily with the community, helped it scale to more than 15 million users. So here we go. Yi was kind enough to provide some insight into her journey. So community marketing is cost-effective and impactful. Community management and marketing is a mentality more than a strategy. It's about focusing on users and developing activities and actions around it. Community marketing includes live streams. Hello. I agree with them for once. It's all about the live stream in 2020. Webinars, and social listening and engagement. It is important to note that community building is not an overnight task. It takes testing and patience and a lot of money. That's the other thing that I don't think people realize. Let's say you have someone on staff whose sole job is to be on Twitter all day to try to find mentions of people that are somewhat related to Binance, right? That their tweet may have something to do with Binance. And it's your job to retweet, reply, like, and build this community on Twitter. So that person's making $35,000, $40,000, $45,000, $50,000 a year, depending on where they live. And that's what they do. And it's just Twitter. So are you going to see a return on investment for that person sitting in that seat? It's fine if you just, received your second round of funding for $10 million. Then great. I'm happy for you. Yi explains, building a community takes time and it's worth it. Personal connections with a community is vital to ensuring continued growth. That includes responding to issues and taking feedback into action, which require strong collaboration with customer support and product teams. It is significantly more cost-effective to organize an Ask Me Anything session with the CEO or executive. This I like, which allows customers to connect with the company and address issues or new products than broadcasting noisy ads. So I would agree with that. That is basically my attempt here with the live show, is to slowly but surely create an AMA session. So the original idea behind this show was to go over the news of the day so you don't have to. So that because look, I tried to read these marketing articles for years and all I could manage to do was skim them. And so I thought, okay, let's kill 2 birds, 1 stone. Let's harvest 2 wheats with 1 plot of land. I need a better analogy than this 2 birds thing. Anyway, Point being that getting through these articles is difficult. So I thought, okay, well, that'll be something nice where I can give people this information. They just have to listen, put it on in the background, fantastic. But really, the goal is for me to educate myself, but also provide a platform, almost like office hours, where anyone at any point in time can ask me a question about internet marketing, and I can find my soft spots. I can find where I don't know the answer. I can research those answers. I can get back to folks. So really, this is just an attempt over time to become an AMA session, an Ask Me Anything session. Just throwing that out there. So if you do have any questions for me, join us for the live show. Throw it in chat. Let me hear you. Community engagement gives companies authenticity and loyalty. The best way to create a meaningful community is to remain authentic. I agree with that. Transparency builds trust. Yeah, these are just just talking points. Even more impactful is when a key executive is part of the plan. Again, the key executives at Binance, the CEO, Zhengpeng Zhao, is famous for being extremely active on Twitter, where he interacts and responds with thousands of people. Says that this interaction is vital. I mean, if you get a retweet from the CEO of a major corporation, yeah, you're likely to retweet it. Makes a lot of sense to me. Strong community marketing brings brand activation and innovation. Strong community marketing activates a brand by bringing more awareness and more meaningful exposure. All right, here is the takeaway as we run out of time for our show today. The takeaway on this particular article, I think, would be to at least attempt to engage with the community that you have. And if someone, and you're a small business, does comment or you really want to show them as much love as possible. There's an interesting video that you may have seen on the internet of one dude in a field dancing like an absolute, I don't know, like a crazy person. Do you understand me? Dude's dancing like a crazy person. And one other person comes up to crazy dancing dude and starts dancing with him, and he shows that person as much love as possible. Yeah, he's losing his mind. He's so happy. And then that person is sucked into the gravity of that moment. And when you have two people, that dude's no longer insane. And then another person comes, he shows that person a ton of love. And before you know it, there's a mob of people dancing like this crazy, insane dude. And so it doesn't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It goes 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, a million. And so just keeping that in mind as you attempt to build a community, it's all about showing the love to those initial adopters. It's a big deal. So to that effect, thank you, Leah and Esther, for the comments today. Much appreciated. Socialmediatoday.com. Let's do our summary. So is Facebook bad for society? No, it's a tool. Society might be bad for society. I think the fact that we can all have a little bit more of an amplified voice is a good thing. I think that when people in authority make mistakes nowadays and someone can point a phone at them and hit the live stream button, that's a good thing. I think that it is much better for the people of this world to have their own surveillance mechanism in their pocket than it is to have top-down government surveillance. I think it's important that we are able to connect with one another. And by and large, I think Facebook is an underrated tool. Hey, that's how you know we're live. So yeah, I am by and large pro Facebook. And for the millionth time, if you do show me something that Facebook has let slip through the cracks, I would agree with you that it is probably garbage 99 out of 100 times. So again, I do support the folks that are criticizing Facebook because they are not by any stretch of the imagination a perfect entity, including the Facebook employees themselves, because they have access that we simply do not have, and they are seeing and hearing things that we don't see and hear. So I stand with them as well. So entrepreneur.com, 4 reasons why focusing on community is your best marketing strategy. Look, the bigger you are as a company, the more you can allocate to this sort of thing, the greater it's going to be. Just don't get it twisted. If you're a small business and you're trying to grow your Facebook page and you're trying to get people to comment on your stuff and you're just really pushing this forward as best you can, you're trying to create a community around whatever, and it's not working, you just have to understand that a lot of these companies that get funded, or they're the second company, or they're a company based on something that's fashionable or sexy or more interesting, and you're a, not that interesting company, you have a self-storage unit. You see what I'm saying? It's important for you to understand where you fall and to not think that you're missing out on community building, because many, many times it simply is not. The best option for you. Pay-per-click may be a better option. SEO may be a better option. So, ladies and gentlemen, yes, cheers, Esther. Cheers, Leia. Thanks so much. We very much appreciate it. That is the show for today. Thank y'all so much for swinging on by. Thank you to everyone on the podcast platforms that has been downloading lately. We very much appreciate that. And if you haven't already, please do hit that like button. It helps out a lot. And we will see you all tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for the live show, or on the podcast or YouTube later. Okay, farewell.